Welcome to Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. I'm Peter Gross, co-host of the original Wild Kingdom with Marlon Perkins and Jim Fowler. Throughout the years of filming Wild Kingdom, we were faced with the grim reality of extinction of some animal species. In the early 60s and 70s, animals were negatively impacted by the loss of habitat and the use of a chemical insecticide known as DDT. Today, DDT has been banned in the United States, and we've made great strides to preserve wide open spaces where animals can thrive. Wild Kingdom made a direct impact on modern captive breeding and release programs, and we're now seeing a positive comeback from many species. We must all do our part to continue this progress to protect all animals in the Wild Kingdom. So sit back and relax and enjoy Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom right here on RFD-TV.
Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom is presented by Mutual of Omaha, people you can count on.
Welcome to Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. Last week in part one of this show, we saw how 11th hour action by man was responsible for saving the graceful trumpeter swan from extinction. These huge white waterfowl, largest in North America, were in fact believed to be extinct. Then, when a small flock of living trumpeter swans was unexpectedly rediscovered near Yellowstone National Park about 40 years ago, man stepped in to save them. The future of these fine birds depended upon a program of reproduction under very close protection. The project was a significant success. As shown last week, the 40,000-acre Red Rock Lakes National Wildlife Refuge was quickly established in Montana near the Idaho border. Here, the birds could be thoroughly protected from both man and natural predators, provided with food during winter when they needed it so badly, and studied closely under natural conditions. We saw how every possible step was being taken to induce these birds to thrive and increase their numbers. As part of the program, the location of every nest on the refuge was pinpointed and then checked twice during the nesting by game management men in airboats to make sure that nothing was disturbing the huge eggs the trumpeter swans laid. Equally, when the eggs finally hatched, we saw how wildlife personnel observed the cygnets, studying them and carefully recording their development. As a result of this effort, the population has increased substantially. But that was only half the story. The population level is not stable. It fluctuates, and this requires continuing study in order to prevent extinction. This means studying the adults as well as the younger birds. The cygnets are observed as they develop, and when they reach the point of about half adult growth, that's when the time is right to band them. It's at this same time that adult birds are molting and have lost so many feathers they can't fly. So they too can be captured and the data on their bands recorded and studied. Just as I was invited to observe the winter feeding program and early spring nest and egg care activities, now I was invited to return and observe the important banding activities involving both young and adults of the swans of Red Rock Lakes. The early summer vista of this wildlife refuge brings a sense of increased appreciation for the sight of such natural beauty and for those who strive to save it. I've been watching some of the predators, such as the red fox, which live on the edges of the refuge. The fox lives mainly on rodents and is really not a potential hazard for the swans. The only natural enemy of the trumpeters is the golden eagle, and even he is not much of a hazard. This eagle only occasionally takes swans.
Those taken are usually birds that are sick or weak. Most often, the eagles and other predators prey on young swans or weak old ones who become frozen in ice in early winter, birds that would perish anyway. Just like the trumpeters, the golden eagle itself is now a protected species and of concern to conservationists, so it's not interfered with in any way. Not a predator, but often seen on the plains surrounding Red Rock Lake's Refuge, is the pronghorned antelope. They remain throughout summer, but are absent in winter. Their senses are quite keen, and this one has evidently heard something. It's the airboat coming to pick me up. I'd better get ready. It's a rule of the Refuge that life vests must be worn as a safety factor by anyone going onto the lakes. These waters are not very deep, but the marshiness of the bottom is a potential danger to anyone who might fall overboard. Assistant Refuge Manager Ron Papike and wildlife biologist Roger Page are the men who are picking me up for today's studies. The airboat is being operated by Ron. The Trumpeter Swan program is of keen interest to him, and he works closely with Roger of the University of Montana, who is directing swan research at this refuge. The molting season has just begun for the swans, and they can no longer fly. So it's the only time, according to Roger, that adult birds can be captured.
During the molting season such as this, the adult swans lose their flight feather and flee by flapping across the surface. And look at the flight feathers this bird is losing. We'll let this one go, since we're not yet to the area where we're planning to work today. Those ducks, scrambling into the marsh grasses, are molting just like the swans are. And they'll be flightless too, until they grow new primary or flight feathers. We're first going to concentrate on catching and banding some of the younger swans, which hatched this spring and haven't yet acquired the ability to fly. This is a family group of 3 cygnets, and I must catch all of them and release them together to avoid the breakup of a swan family. One has dived and another is trying to. This makes catching them more difficult. With this one captured, we'll now catch the other 2 and band all 3 at once.
We had captured the first of the 3 cygnets for banding and recording the data. So now we set about trying to catch the 2 which remained.
The other 2 cygnets are nearby. It's important that we catch them so that the whole family can be released together. There's one of the two, and he's our next target. That's two captured. It's fortunate the cygnets are so mild in temperament, because as we maneuver for the next one, there's no trouble keeping the captive birds under control.
It's another fine catch. Now with the boat stopping, Ron can relax a while as Roger briefly studies the family group. They remain incredibly calm despite the handling. I'm all ready to log the data, and Roger begins his procedure with them. First, we'll record the area of capture, and then its sex. The identification band Ron gets ready will remain on the bird the rest of its life. It's an adult-sized band, which is used now because the cygnets have become large enough so it will not slip off. Bands like this one have the number recorded, and then as the bird is recaptured, perhaps several times in its life, certain factors can be determined.
Facts on mortality and movement are especially valuable in providing population figure. The records obtained from recovery of these bands indicates that a brood of cygnets may remain together for more than a year. Banding also tells us that these cygnets, as breeding adults, will return to the same area in successive years. Over 200 swans, adults as well as cygnets, have been banded during this project. From the data which has been accumulated, it's been possible to provide parent stock trumpeters for reintroduction to other areas. Now, with the work completed on this group of cygnets, I'll release them together. Perhaps next year they'll be caught again and provide more information for the swan research continuing here.
Before leaving, we're fortunate enough to witness a squabble between a pair of male coots over a female. It's the female who finally breaks it up. Now it's time for us to move on and capture some of the adult trumpeters.
The object of capturing adult birds like this one is to band it, or to record the number if it already has a band. However, the wildlife management men and I want no undue harassment of the swans to occur. We miss the swan, then that bird is abandoned, and Ron moves in on another. This group, like the others, are still losing their flight feathers and will be flightless about 6 weeks. Just like the cygnets, The adult trumpeters are remarkably docile and unafraid once they've been caught. This bird is already banded, so I'll check the identification so Marlin can record it in the logbook. Later on, back at headquarters, we'll carefully study the entries and correlate our findings. We'll release this particular bird, but other birds in the near future may be taken away to establish a wild migratory population of trumpeters in the Midwest.
As soon as we had carefully recorded the data from the band of the first adult swan that we caught and released, we renewed our search for others.
We have to travel far between captures, since the territory of a mated pair is up to 100 acres. Sometimes they gather in groups to molt. I'll try to get at least one of these. The adults are much more adept at evading capture than the cygnets. By far, the greater majority dive or dodge away just before the airboat reaches them. Those which dive under the boat are unhurt because there's no underwater propeller, and the bottom of the boat is only an inch or two under the surface. It's always encouraging to capture an unbanded adult, for it adds one more source of data to our records. Although this is a Red Rock Lakes trumpeter, this swan has never been caught before today. Getting short. There's time for us to catch and band only one more bird before we head back to headquarters. We're coming up on a big adult bird, but even as it attempts to escape us, I can see there's a new band on its leg, which I put there yesterday, and so there's no need to capture it. Still, it gives us a chance to marvel at the strength of this magnificent bird as it attempts to fly and cannot. The trumpeter swan is the largest waterfowl in the world, and that wingspan is over 7 feet. This bird is still in the midst of its molt and continues to throw off more flight feathers as we follow to observe it.
Moving on for that final swan capture today, we're lucky to get a good view of the largest animal of the refuge, a big cow moose we've startled. She wants to get away from us, but is also concerned for her calf who can't keep up. There's not much cover around, but she certainly takes advantage of what's available.
notice that the trumpeter swans won't plunge into the marshy cover to escape us, but always seem to prefer the open water. We won't chase this one any further, but we'll try for another in a different group.
I want to get a close look at this specimen. Roger said he will hold off releasing it until I've had a chance to inspect it at close range. It is still surprising to me that a newly caught wild animal remains so unperturbed at what has happened. No fear whatsoever is shown by the bird at our touch. I don't know of any other animal which would act like this after being chased down by a noisy airboat. This is a female, and they're not as large as the males, but they still have a long and powerful wing. Now we get a good look at the new primaries, or flight feathers, just sprouting from their sheaths to take the place of those lost through molting. The swan already has a band on its leg, so we'll note the identification number, which tells us where and when the bird was banded, and how many times since the initial banding it has been checked. These birds have been known to live for 32 years in captivity, and let us hope this one will live that long. Though trumpeters were once thought to be nearly extinct, now through conservation programs they've been restored to a reasonably healthy population. Future generations of man will therefore not be deprived of such a glorious sight as the swans of Red Rock Lakes.
The story of how the trumpeter swan has been saved from the brink of extinction is a truly inspiring one. Had such extinction occurred to this magnificent bird, the loss would have been tragic and irreparable. The saving of this species is an excellent example of how wildlife research and management does pay off. Animals near the point of extinction can be brought back through good planning and the efforts of dedicated people. Dedicated people means not only conservationists and researchers, it means as well governments ready and willing to take necessary actions. It also means concerned people. People like yourselves who are willing to help preserve and protect the wild kingdom.
Mutual of Omaha, people you can count on, has presented Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
Mutual of Omaha, helping people find Medicare solutions for over 50 years. To learn more about plan options or how to protect your kingdom, contact us today.
Mutual of Omaha. Protect your kingdom.